everyone. It's Enjoy English School. I'm Chris Gorski.
I'm Anthony.
Today is January 11th. We're on pages 24 and 25 today. It's day 2 of our Martin Luther King Jr. biography lesson.Yeah,
我们今天要继续介绍马丁路德金恩二世的故事。我们昨天呢，简单的介绍了一下当初在1954年到1968年的时候，黑人运动的时代背景。然后我们提到了一下当时造成许许多多不公平的这个 Jim Crow Laws， 好，吉姆克劳法。还有呢，最后一段呢，我们是介绍了金恩的成长背景，他为什么那个时候会这么小的时候就有这么正义感，是因为他爸爸本身就是民权运动的一个推手。他当初呢，在1929年的时候，在 Georgia 这个地方长大，那在这个地方呢，就是实施吉姆克劳法的地方。那我们今天要继续介绍更多有关Martin Luther King Jr. 的内容哦。
Martin Luther King Jr.One of Martin Luther King Jr.'s first major protests was the Montgomery Bus Boycott. In protest against the unfair treatment of black passengers on public buses, African Americans in the city refused to ride the buses for 382 days. King was arrested during the protests, and his house was even bombed.Eventually, it was ruled that black passengers had full rights to sit anywhere they wanted on buses. Despite the attacks he suffered, King still claimed that nonviolence was the correct way to achieve the protesters' goals. One of King's largest protests was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963.where more than 200,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. to call for equal rights. Here, King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. In the speech, he imagined a future where people of all races would enjoy the same rights and live in harmony. The next year, the U.S. Congress passed the Civil Rights Act,which states that no one should be discriminated against based on their race, sex, or religion. On April 4, 1968, King was shot and killed during a trip to Memphis to support a strike organized by black workers. To this day, he remains an inspiration for those who fight for the rights of minorities. In the U.S., the third Monday of January is Martin Luther King Jr. Day.When people honor his memory and contributions.
All right, friends, it is time for our paragraph 1. And if today feels different, where I usually try to have like a really fun and energetic story, I still feel that, but this is also something I feel a lot of passion for. Martin Luther King had a strong sense of justice, and I do too. I'm a teacher because I believe that you can make change in the world. Will it always be big change? No, but if you want change, you better be ready to make that change. And so to me, this is like a personal hero. And Martin Luther King wasn't perfect. He did bad things, like he cheated on his wife.But that doesn't mean that he's not a hero and did amazing things. We all sometimes make mistakes. And if anybody ever tells you, like, well, this hero did a bad thing, so he's 100% bad, that is a bad argument, and you should never accept it.
没错，老师呢就说到说，老师本身选择的老师这个职业，是因为他也有很强烈的正义感，也希望所以他对于这个议题呢，非常非常充满热情。如果说今天呢，你看到说 Martin Luther King 的故事，你跟人家讲，人家告诉你说，哦 ，Martin Luther King 他可能有外遇啊，或什么的，然后老师这边的观点是说，对，每个人都会有做错事情的时候，但是他今天做了这么大的一件事情，帮助了这么多的人，然后帮助很多黑人得到他们的平权跟自由。那不会因为他的一些小事情就否定他整个这么伟大的这个成就，所以说这件事情是必须要记在心里的。
Let's continue. One of Martin Luther King Jr.'s first major protests was the Montgomery Bus Boycott.
好，接下来我们第一段的第一句话呢，他就开始提到了 One of Martin Luther King Jr.'s first major protests。好，他第一个非常非常重要而巨大的一个这个抗议行动呢，他就告诉你了 ，was the Montgomery Bus Boycott。好，就是在蒙哥马利的这种巴士 共同抵制的行动。
Now, yesterday we talked about Georgia. So think Florida, go north, that's Georgia. And then you have Alabama, that's just over this way. Okay, so it's really close. In protest against, I said to protest the unfair treatment of black passengers on public buses, African Americans in the city refused to ride the buses for 382 days.
好，所以要告诉你它的实际的内容哦。你可以说 in protest against。好，这个地方 against 帮我把它圈起来。如果提到 protest 这个字的话，就是抗议，对不对？如果说今天后面接的是 against， 后面再接的东西就会是你抗议的对象。Unfair treatment of black passengers on public buses， 所以他就说，为了要去抗议在巴士上面对待这种黑人的方式是极度不公平的这样的现象呢。African Americans in the city， 好，所有在这个城市里头的黑人 refused to ride the buses for 382 days， 所以连续382天，超过1年的时间，他们所有的黑人都不搭巴士。
King was arrested during the protests and his house was even bombed.
Okay, King， 好，这是我们讲到 Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested during the protests。好，在当时的时候，因为这个抗议行动，他居然就被捕了，好下狱。And his house was even bombed。还有人呢去炸他的家。
Okay, so let's add a little color to the story. 他这么做，而且为什么？ So Rosa Parks was a 42-year-old woman. She was sitting on the bus. A white man got on the bus and said, "Get out of the seat." In the American South, Jim Crow South, black people could sit anywhere on the bus. 这个常常是有人搞混了。People could sit anywhere on the bus. But if a white person wanted to sit in your seat, the black person had to get up and go sit in the back. The back was smokier. There's no air conditioning, so it's hotter because 那个引擎在那边。Also, if the bus was full and a white person wanted to sit in the back, the black person had to stand up just because they were black.
所以老师这边话特别说明一下当时背景。很多人以为说，哦，当时的话那个黑人的话就是没有办法，就是必须不能坐前面。其实事实上是，如果说今天白人他想坐任何地方，只要黑人坐，他就可以叫他起来。那当初的那个巴士本身，因为引擎放在后面，所以后面呢又吵，而且呢又热，对不对？阿拉巴马的天气也是非常非常热的嘛。所以说今天，如果说今天你上了那个公车，你想要休息要坐着，但是突然间白人就叫你给我站起来，你已经累了一天了，你就被叫人家站起来，然后呢你就把位置让给人家。当时就有一位女士，老师刚刚提到 Rosa Parks， 在1955年的时候，她就决定说拒绝我不要让位，好，然后到后来就引发了后面的事件。
She was taken to jail for this, and this is what started the Montgomery Bus Boycott. Now, who cares if black people don't ride the bus, right? Who cares? Don't forget that the African American population was 75% of the bus riders. You have to pay for your buses. You have to buy the gas. You have to pay for the bus drivers. And when you ride the bus, that money you pay, a little bit goes to the city. That money stopped going to the city, and the city did not have money to do their business. So African Americans starved the beast of the city that was treating them unfairly.
所以说今天他为什么这样做最后会成功呢？原因是因为你可以看到阿拉巴马州会搭巴士的人3/4都是黑人。如果说这些黑人不搭巴士的话，他们就不会付巴士的钱，然后这个公司也没有办法付钱给这个巴士的司机，然后这一部分的钱呢也没有办法到市政府，那这市政府没有钱的话，他就没办法做事情，所以又透过这种方式，等于是压迫市政府，你敢再这样对我不公不义的话，你就收不到钱，你就什么事都不能做，到最后只好政府要妥协。
To make the protest, to make the boycott even better, Martin Luther King says, we want you to wear your suits. We want you to wear your nice dresses. We want you to look very, very joigné, professional, and walk in the hot Alabama sun. Like, think super hot Taiwan, 40 degrees Taiwan. In the sun, 很多公里, a lot of kilometers back and forth, because people will respect you.
哇，所以说今天 Martin Luther King 还要请这些参加这种示威游行的人说，你不要说随便穿个吊嘎穿个衬衫就来，你要慎重其事的穿上你最好的衣服走在街上。其实想到穿着这么多衣服在那个太阳下面晒是很恐怖的，但是这样大家还会认真的看待我们这次的行动。
All right, let's continue now. Eventually, it was ruled that black passengers had full rights to sit anywhere they wanted on buses, and they didn't have to stand up for white people.
Yeah， 所以到后来 eventually 就告诉你这个结果了。It was ruled that 好，最后呢，法院判定说怎么样 ？Black passengers had full rights to sit anywhere they wanted on buses。所以说今天判院结果是说，所以所有的黑人都可以坐在他们任何想坐的地方，而不用因为白人要他起来，他就必须要让座。
Let's continue. Despite the attacks he suffered, King still claimed that non-violence was the correct way to achieve the protesters' goals.
好，所以在这边他提到一个字 despite 这个字就是虽然的意思，但这边特别小心。Despite 这个字它是一个介系词，所以后面只能接名词，所以你会说 Despite the attacks he suffered， 尽管呢，你看他家又被炸，又入狱啊等等，他受到许许多多的攻击，就算这些攻击都发生了，但是这我们的主角 King 他还是 still claim that 还是主张什么呢？Non-violence was the correct way to achieve the protesters' goals. 他还是要用非暴力的手段去达成这些抗议人的目的。
That's exactly right, because Martin Luther King studied Gandhi, and he saw that some people did get violent in in India, and England says, oh, look at these very violent protesters. We don't need to listen to them because they're violent. But Gandhi was always nonviolent, and they could not ignore him for that.
没有错。所以说今天他其实深受了这个印度圣雄甘地的启发，对不对？当时的话，在印度的时候，有很多人都是用群起抗争，可能有暴力行动。所以说今天呢，政府可以贴上暴民的标签，都不理他，就极度镇压。可是今天甘地他是选择非暴力的手段，他就不得不听从他的诉求。那在这边的话，刚好这个 Martin Luther King 也受到甘地的启发，也采取了非暴力的运动。
All right, let's take a quick break. All right, welcome back to Enjoy English School. We're on day 2 of our story about Martin Luther King Jr. We're on pages 24 and 25. Let's look at paragraph 2. Our first sentence is a little long, but we can break it up and make it easy. One of King's largest protests was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963, where more than 200,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. to call for equal rights.
哇，这句话好长，对不对？没有关系哦，我们一点一点来看哦，切就可以了。One of King's largest protests。好，他先告诉你说，他其中所主办过最大的运动之一呢，好，最大的抗议活动之一呢 was 来了，这个很大哦 ，The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963。好，这一整块就是 was 什么东西，所以呢，这句话的前半就是 One of the King's largest protests, A was B. What is B? The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. 所以说在这里的话，你只要把它先切成几个方块，这样去看待的话，就可以看出整个句子的结构。后面他就告诉你了 ，where 就是 in the march。好，在这样的行动 in this movement, more than 200,000 people gathered in Washington D.C. to call for equal rights. 所以在这个行动里面呢，超过20万人，好，聚集在 Washington D.C. 就是华盛顿特区 to call for equal rights。这个地方就是指说去要求平权。在那边特别注意一下，如果你听到 Washington D.C. 的时候，它是在东岸的华盛顿特区，而不是西岸的 Washington State， 不是华盛顿州。以后你在看的时候要特别小心，他们地理位置差距非常的大。
Yeah, they're really, really far away. Let's continue. Here, 不是 at here, King gave his famous I have a dream speech.
好，在这边的话呢，就是我所熟悉的哈。Here, King gave his famous I have a dream speech. 好，意思就是在这个地方，1963年的时候，他就说了这场演讲，这种演讲叫做我有一个梦 I have a dream.
Now, I have a dream is not a very hard speech. Maybe it's a little hard right now for you, but you can easily study this with your dictionary. When you're a few years older, this is a speech that read the script and then practice your vocab, and you can listen to it. Now, it's a little hard to hear because this is 1963, but it is very powerful. It is very beautiful. And he says very simple things. I have a dream that white children and black children can sit together at a table of brotherhood. That you and I'm going to cry saying this. That you and I are not different. That all I'm asking for is not more, but equal.
Yeah, you see my
Oh,
goosebumps.
I'm
Yes,
ready to cry
yes.
over the idea that people would want to hurt we could reject this idea.
没错，所以他既然这个诉求，其实你现在看起来是这么的简单，可在那时候要达成这个目标是确实那么的困难。其实我们听到的时候，其实心里都会很有感觉，会有点哽咽的感觉，想到说哇，以前我们现在所享有的一切，当时是这么努力才争取来的，真是很不容易。
Right. So now in the I Have a Dream speech, he uses the word Negro. And yesterday at the very beginning of the show, I told you we want to say the word African American or black for just a hey run, right? Mm-hmm. We should not say the word Negro. It's a word we don't say it anymore, okay? He does use it because at that time it was correct, but it is not a word you should say. Please be careful when you read that speech. It's not a word you want to run around saying.
没错，你在看那个 speech 的时候，里面有提到 Negro 这个字的话，当时是这样用，他当时只有这个方式来称呼黑人，但是现在那个称呼方式已经不合时宜了，你这样称呼他可能会被打，所以说要特别注意用 African Americans 是最好的说法哦。
In the speech, he imagined a future where people of all races, all colors, would enjoy the same rights and live in harmony. Hold on. You have to dream that we're equal? How is this crazy? This is a crazy idea to me.
Yeah, 所以说在这边的话，他就说了 in the speech， 好，在这个演讲里面 he imagined a future， 他的想象出一片未来，在这个未来里面 where means in the future, people of all races would enjoy the same rights and live in harmony。 对我们来讲说，对啊，等等。人不是生而平等的吗？为什么这样还要去想象出这样的未来？可是在当时就是不平等，大家就是没办法和平相处，对不对？好，所以在这里 people of all races 这个地方 of 圈起来，有时候你会听到 people of color 就是指有色人种，这个 of 的话是常常使用的这个介系词哦，要特别注意。
All right, the next year, the U.S. Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, which states that no one should be discriminated against based on their race,sex or religion.
所以接下来呢，你看1963年他做了这个演讲 The next year 1964年的时候 The US Congress 好，美国国会 passed the Civil Rights Act 好，就是通过这个民权法案 which states that 这个 states 帮我圈起来哦，里面明确的规定明确的指出什么呢？ No one should be discriminated against based on their race, sex, or religion. 这民权法案里面有提到说，没有任何人应该被歧视，而这歧视的原因是根据他的种族、他的性别或者他的宗教。
Now, we should be clear that even after the Civil Rights Act was passed, which was an amazing, amazing thing, Lyndon Johnson passed this, and it wasn't like he wasn't a perfect person, but this was important.There's still a lot of discrimination that exists in the United States. It did not end here, but he changed a lot.
没有错。所以在这边的话，即便1964年的时候通过了这个民权平等法，好，它就是那个民权法案。但是呢，其实事实上，在美国还是有许多这种种族的不公平的事件啊，不断的出来，我们还是没有办法完全做到大家把这件事人人平等这件事，就是一个很简单的很基本的一个理想，但是就是没有办法达到。
All right, let's get ready for our final paragraph. All right, friends, welcome back to Enjoy English School. We're on our final paragraph about the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Our final paragraph sentence begins on April 4, 1968. King was shot and killed during a trip to Memphis to support a strike organized by black workers.
OK, 所以在接下来我们最后这一段，我看到这句话的时候，我觉得哦天哪
I feel like of course.
对了，没有错，因为这样做的话，一定会有人反对他人，就要先把它处理掉，对不对？所以在这边的话，看到说 ，On April 4th, 1968， 1968年的这个4月4号的时候 ，King was shot and killed during a trip to Memphis to support a strike organized by black workers. 这个 Memphis 的话是在田纳西州很边的地方。好，那在这边的话，他们在过去要准备去帮助这边这个活动的时候呢，就被暗杀掉了。He was shot and killed. 好，在这边的话呢，我们看到 strike 的意思就是指罢工行动。好，所以说今天 you can stage a strike。stage 这个字的话就是舞台那个字 S-T-A-G-E 当动词使用 stage a strike stage a demonstration。 那这个 strike 本身是 organized by black workers 是由黑人的这些劳工们所组成的一个罢工行动。
Now, a demonstration and a protest are non-violent. They're saying some law is illegal, but a strike is only about work.
strike 的话就是罢工行动，但是 demonstration 的话，它就是一个示威行动，也许它跟这个工作没有关系。
To this day, he remains an inspiration for those who fight for the rights of minorities.
这边的话，这个 keyword minorities 就是指少数民族，可能不管是其他的这些地方移来的这个，不管是非洲裔的啦，或者是西班牙裔的啦，等等各式各样的这种少数民族。To this day， 直到今日呢 ，he remains an inspiration。好，他仍然是大家的这个英雄，心中向往的一个形象，不断鼓励他们做什么事情。For those who fight for the rights of minorities， 为这些少数民族谋福利、争取平权的这些人，他们都把这个 Martin Luther King 当作他们心中的偶像。
In the U.S., the third Monday of January is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, when people honor his memory and contributions.
好，所以最后他就告诉你说 ，In the U.S. 在美国呢 ，the third Monday of January 就是下礼拜一 is Martin Luther King Jr. Day。好，就是马丁路德金恩纪念日。When 好，这个地方 when 就是指 on this day, people honor his memory and contributions。大家呢就会缅怀他对他的这个记忆啊，还有他所做出的贡献。
If you study history, his death is no surprise. Martin Luther King knew himself that he was in danger. He knew it. It was very clear. He was a leader of a church, and so he studied Jesus. And now we think of like Jesus this, but really, Jesus really was just a regular person that wanted to help the very poor in the Roman Empire. They killed him.
Yes.
And then when Gandhi wanted to be free from India and the things they did, he did it non-violently, and he said things must change. And they killed him. And when Martin Luther King says, we want change and we don't want more, we just want to be equal, they killed him too. The lesson in history here is that if you make big change, people will fight you for that change. And sometimes you need to be ready to die.
OK， 所以老师这边特别提到说，事实上搞不好 Martin Luther King 也知道自己最后会死，因为他本身是教会里头的这个讲道的牧师，所以说从 Jesus， 他当初Jesus 只是为了帮助穷人，然后呢没有要对抗罗马帝国的意思，但是他就被杀了。甘地他也希望说非暴力，但是最后呢也被杀了。所以他在这种情况下，我没有要求多，我只要求平等被对待。但最后他面对他的也是他的死期，所以事实上他可能也都知道说一定会死。所以刚刚我觉得说看到这句话很伤心，第三段第一句话很伤心的时候，老师会说 It's no surprise， 所以对他来讲一点都不意外，因为历史早就会重演了。
It's a sad ending, but it's a real end that some people are willing to give everything, literally everything, to make the world better for everyone. Let's get ready for vocab review. All right, it's time for vocab review. Our first word today is an adjective, major.
Major 就是主要的、重大的。
Next, we have a verb, to arrest.
To arrest 就是逮捕某人。
Next, we have a verb, to rule.
To rule 在这边的话，我们讲的意思是去做出一个判决。
Next, we have an uncountable noun, violence.
Violence 就是指暴力，但这边的话我们讲 non-violence 就是非暴力的意思。
Next is a verb, to gather.
Gather 如果是人群 gather 就是聚集，当然你也可以 gather things 就是把东西聚集起来的意思。
Next, we have a phrase, to live in harmony.
Live in harmony 就是和平共处。
Next, we have another verb, to strike.
To strike 就是罢工，它也可以当名词，可以当做罢工的意思。
And last, we have this is a noun here, a minority.
A minority 就是少数民族，也可以使用复数 minorities 来表达。
Now, I know maybe these past 2 days a little heavy, be pinked on the high, maybe serious, but that's because I think this is a really important topic. I hope you learned a lot. I really do. And keep doing the right thing, even if people don't like it. For enjoying the school, I'm Chris Gorski.
I'm Anthony.
See you next time.
Bye bye.